Thank y'all so much for joining us on our group alignment with the Uncharted series. It's going to be a great journey, and we're excited about doing this with you. Um, Let me ask you this. As a kid in elementary school, did you ever play games that were kind of fun games, kids that all the kids played together? I know growing up, there was three specific games that I remember playing in elementary school that I enjoyed a lot. Two of them were sanctioned. One of them was not sanctioned. Now, the one that wasn't sanctioned was Kiss and Chase, and it was on the playground. And I'd have to admit that was one of the faster kids in school, but I was a little slower for Kiss and Chase because I was really excelled in that game. But anyway, two of the sanctioned games, one of those was Follow the Leader, and Follow the Leader was so amazing. I love playing Follow the Leader when the teachers would let us play Follow the Leader. And with Follow the Leader, especially early on, the teacher would let us do things like hop around the room or fly like an airplane. And most of the time, it was working on basic skills. And so it was really good for us to do that. But then as we got older, they had to challenge us a little bit more, had to make it a little more complicated. And then the best part was when you got to be the leader. I loved being the leader because when I was the leader, I tried to do things. I tried to do things that the people behind me couldn't do, whether it was run faster, trying to get away from the group, or go through areas that were really tight fit, or do things that I know that people wouldn't do. And so that was just kind of what we did. Following the leader has always been part of all of our lives. Even if it wasn't a game, we've always followed the leader. Maybe it was when you were in school and the teacher was teaching you how to write, and you would watch her write and then you would follow how she wrote. Or maybe if you played a sport, you had to work on a skill and you'd watch your coach do a skill and then you would follow what he did. One of the great things today is this thing called YouTube, okay? And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about when I say YouTube, but YouTube has all kinds of videos on it where you can learn how to do different things, whether it's play the guitar or play the piano or learn how to shoot a free throw or even learn how to throw an axe or shoot a bow and arrow. And the great thing about all those deals is the more that you do it, the more that you follow, the better you get at that skill. And so if you want to move from being mediocre in something, you just got to keep doing it over and over and over again. So let me ask you this. What leader are you following right now? I know it'd be easy for us to answer that question and because we know what we're supposed to say, but in reality, what leader are you really following? What leader are you listening to right now? There's a passage in Luke where Jesus is talking to a crowd, okay? And he's talking to a crowd, and for the most part, there was crowds that followed him everywhere he went. And those crowds were basically mesmerized by his teaching, but also the things that he was doing. And in this point in Luke, he's talking to the crowd, and this is what he says in Luke 9:23 through 24. It says, "Then he said to the crowd, 'If any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross daily, and follow me.'" And then verse 24, "If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life, for my sake, you will save it." And so what Jesus is doing right here is he's offering an invitation to the crowd. He's offering this invitation to the group, to the masses that are following him. And they had been following him for quite some time, mainly because they just were blown away by how he was teaching and what he was doing. And he was saying this, okay, it's an open invitation to the crowd. He's opening this invitation up, but he understands that many people, even though they receive the invitation, they're not going to listen to the invitation and they're not going to receive the invitation and follow. But then he says, what does it look like? Okay, he's asking him to follow, but then he says, okay, this is what following me looks like. As we look at this, it says, give up your way. It says, give up your way. And really, here's the deal. You cannot play follow the leader if you're not going to follow the leader. If you're going to do your own thing and do what you want to do, you're not following the leader anymore. And that's what this is. He's saying you need to give up your way of doing things and follow my way. You need to say no to your agenda, your plans, and your purpose, and grab a hold of my plans, my agenda, and my purpose. There's no way we can be a follower of Jesus and do what we want to do. And that's what Jesus was saying to this crowd. He was saying, quit trying to do life your way, quit trying to do life the way you think it needs to work out, and follow me. Do it my way. Give up your way and do it my way. And then he goes on and he says the next thing he says this. He says, take up your cross. Now, for many of us, that really, honestly, it doesn't carry near the weight today as it did then. Because when Jesus was talking to these people, to this crowd, and he says, take up your cross, they visually could see what that looked like. Because back in those days, this was something that they saw on a regular basis. They saw people killed. They saw people crucified on a cross. And so when he said that, it spoke into an uncomfortableness, to an inconvenience, to a challenge of a lifestyle, because whenever you talked about the cross, you were talking about death. You weren't talking about some kind of thing that you hung on the side of your wall in your living room or you wore around your neck. It was a replica. It was a sign of death. And what they would actually do during this time is they would carry a part of that cross to the place where they were going to be crucified. So they carried their cross, which represented death, to the place that they were going to be killed. And I think when you look at this, here's the crazy part that I love so much about this, is he's making an invitation to the group and he's saying, follow me. But it's not about dying one time. He says, take up your cross and follow me daily. He says, take up your cross daily. You need to do this daily. So really what he is saying to the crowd is you need to die daily, not one time, not just do it every now and then, but daily you need to die to your agenda, to your plan, and your schedule and your purpose. So as he says, follow me, he's saying, give up your way, die to yourself, okay? And then he finishes up this part with something to me that just seems kind of weird. Listen to what it says in that verse again. It says, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross daily. And then he says this, and follow me. It kind of is weird to me. He says, if you want to follow Jesus, he's saying, if you want to follow me, then follow me. And I'm like, what is why is he saying that? Why he's repeating himself? And I really feel like what he's doing there is he's emphasizing the importance of following how Jesus lived his life. If you want to be a follower of Jesus, you need to do what he does. You need to follow his life. You need to love people the way he does. You need to care for people the way he does. You need to be living your life in a way that he lived his life then. Now, and one of the things that they didn't understand at this point was Jesus knew where he was headed. He was going to physically die for them. And he was saying, hey, if you're going to follow me, you better get ready to follow me, because it's going to cost you more than you could ever imagine. So if you're going to follow me, then you need to be ready to die daily. You need to be willing to give up your life. I want to shoot straight with you for just a second. I don't know if we're ever going to be called to die for our faith. I don't know if we're ever going to be called to do that. And it may happen, it may not. I hope it never does. But I can guarantee you that each one of us every day are called to die to ourselves. We're called to die to our agenda. We're called to die to our building of our kingdom. We're called to do what God wants us to do and live the life he's called us to do. So how are you doing in playing follow the leader? What leader are you following right now? Is your life characterized by how Jesus lived his life? Every single day, are you carrying your cross? Are you dying to your agenda, your purpose, and your plan? So how are you doing following Jesus? Are you living selflessly? Are you putting your comfort and your convenience on the back burner so that you can focus on God's kingdom and what he wants to do in your life and through your life? Now, I love the passage, the rest of this passage in verse 24. I love what it says here. Let me read that for you. After he says, if you want to follow me, this is what you need to do. He says in verse 24, he says, if you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. You see, when we follow Jesus, when we do it Jesus' way, and we sacrifice our life for his kingdom and what he wants to do and what he needs to do and what he's asking us to do, when we do that, that is when we truly experience life. That's when we experience the life that he promises us. And that's what he wants for each one of us. He wants us to have that type of life. He wants us to have an enjoyable life and an amazing experience. The key to following Jesus is living a life that is eternally driven. It's doing things that impact others. It's living our life that builds God's kingdom and not our own. So, is the leader that you're following, is that leader all about showing people Jesus? Is the leader that you are following, is that leader impacting eternity? So if you're truly a follower of Jesus, then your life will be more about living for God and building His kingdom than living for yourself and building your kingdom. So the question is this: what leader are you following? What leader are you following today? Are you helping build God's kingdom? Are you helping build eternity? Are you investing in the lives of people with your time and your energy and your resources? Are you building your kingdom? So take a few minutes and check out this video from one of our people.
I am Kendall Conklin. I am 19 and I teach in the students ministry K through second grade at Grace Fellowship. I started coming to Grace when I was really little, when I was about in first grade, when back then it was called PZ, it was called Power Zone, and Jeremy was leading it, and my parents didn't really find that church that was like the home church, so one of their work friends recommended Grace, and then my parents loved it, they loved BJ, and we started coming there. And then in about middle school or high school, we kind of went on a hiatus. We stopped going to Grace for a while, and then I really started coming back regularly August of last year, and I don't miss a Sunday now because Grace is like my home, and I haven't felt more welcomed as this much by any other church. I haven't felt this involved. This is like the first time I've actually served in a church, and I absolutely love it, and I never want to leave. And it just makes me want to keep coming back more and more, getting more involved, because this is my family church. I want to serve at Grace because that's what Jesus calls us to do. Jesus was a servant. We are never beyond the towel. And He washed feet. We need to wash feet. We are called to serve like He served. And since Jesus has served me so much in my life, I want to give that back to other people. I got a great opportunity to be involved in an intern meeting where Mark was teaching us about identity, how we can be so easily caught into this false identity and believe the devil's lies. But in reality, Jesus is the only one that gives us our true identity, and we have to go to Him to find out what that is. And I had been struggling a lot. I didn't even realize I was like living in this false identity until He asked, "What do you hate most about yourself?" And I was like, "Oh, geez." And it all just unraveled. I was crying and crying because I felt so horrible about believing these horrible lies about myself and letting myself go down such a dark spiral when Jesus was there the whole time, just waiting for me to come to Him and for Him to tell me my true name. And I looked at a grace pen and then it clicked, and Jesus calls me His graceful warrior. I'm not undeserving, I'm not ugly, I'm not dumb, I'm not unworthy, I'm His graceful warrior. And it all just clicked, and it was definitely probably the most spiritual experience I've ever had in my whole life. And I'm honored to have had it at Grace. So going back to what I said is like why I want to keep serving is Jesus changed my life. I was in a really bad spiral. I was anorexic. I was bulimic. I hated myself, had no self-worth. And Jesus is the only thing that pulled me out of that. He gets all the credit, all the glory for that. And I want other people, even little kindergartners, I want them to feel that feeling that Jesus gave me. I want them to feel that feeling of being saved, that feeling of endless joy and endless peace. And I know Grace is doing that. And when I learned about Uncharted and how big it's getting, I guess I didn't realize like how big of a church Grace was, is I see how miraculous this, Chris called it a miracle in the cow pasture. And it is such a crucial part of Wise County. Even if this whole entire Uncharted thing is just for one person to find Christ, then that's what it's all for. And it is just a great way for us to be disciples of Christ and continuing growing and furthering the kingdom of God. Well, it's not like a relationship where if you give, God's gonna give, we're not in that place. But when you do surrender that to Him, He gives you so much. Since I've started serving and I gave Him that, I gave Him my time, I gave Him my Like, I completely was like, God, just use me in this church however you can. I've learned my name. I have learned how to hear God speak. I've gotten to sit in amazing intern meetings. I've got to be in this video. Like, God has like grown my spot in this church like so much. I've got so many friends, so many church family. Like, my place, like, if I look back, like, I'm thinking about a year ago today, before I like got involved, before I said, yes, God, just use me in this church, put me where you need to be, I'll give it to you. I'm completely different. Like, I didn't have any friends besides my fiance Dallas. I wasn't connected. I just was coming and sitting. But when I said yes, like, everything changed. Like, it became my home church. I'm Kendall, and this is my Uncharted story.